Hello, good morning, good afternoon, hello, happy Sunday. Welcome to another episode of the Gaming Aroma podcast. I don't really have my intro down yet. I think every single, just bit my tongue. Every single podcast I listen to has an intro, right? And I think I need that. I need a hook, right? Let me know what you think. What should it be? It's always the weirdest part, starting that, kicking off the recording. I've been recording some Let's Play videos this weekend, and starting them is always the most difficult part. And starting the podcast is a difficult part. I think I've got it nailed for Gears Intel, where I say, hello, Gears and gaming fans. But I need something for this. Hello, aroma sniffers. No, not that. Hello, aroma consumers. I don't know. I don't know. I'll figure it out. Maybe I need to write some ideas down. But this, as you know, this podcast is very lo-fi, very off the cuff. Before I get started, I just need to let you all know. You can probably hear already in my voice. I'm not as bunged up today, but I have like a sore throat, and my kid has been mixing with other kids all week for 5 days, passed on the germs to me. He's been coughing everywhere. I've been coughing, been sleeping on the sofa to give my wife some space. Our marriage is fine. Don't worry. My sniffing and being bunged up is not ideal. So my voice will be very weird today. So hope that's not too much poison on your ears, but bear with me. I'm suffering through and I'm here. This is episode 8, I think. 8 weeks in a row. That's pretty good. It is Sunday. This podcast is coming out a little bit later than it usually would because it's a very special weekend. It is WrestleMania weekend. Now, those of you who do know me know that I am a wrestling fan. I've kind of been off the WWE wagon for a long time because it's been very hit and miss, but they're kind of turning things around now that management has changed at WWE, and Vinnie Mac is no longer at the helm, thank God. And they're turning it around, so it's been good, and it's easy. I think even when I wasn't really enjoying WWE, I always watch WrestleMania. At least I have for since like 2016. The long and short of it is, like most people, or like lots of people, loved wrestling as a kid. Kind of stopped watching everything point blank around 2003, I think. 2002, and then picked up again in 2016, kind of when British independent wrestling was really kicking off, and there was some awesome stuff in the British UK scene, and it felt like wrestling was becoming cool again. WWE was kind of hit and miss at the time, and then obviously AEW came along, and I was a big fan of that, and then WWE sort of went off the rails, and they're bringing it back, and it's WrestleMania weekend. So, and this morning, I didn't stay up for WrestleMania because, that's just not physically impossible for me. That's not physically possible anymore. I need a lot of energy drinks if I was going to do that. Got responsibilities, got kids to look after, stuff to do. So what we did is first thing this morning we woke up, because my kid is actually kind of into wrestling. He's absorbing it through me, and he does watch the shows, and he cries when the bad guys win. Like, he gets fully invested. He has his favourites. I'm kind of turning him into a wrestling fan. So I was telling him about WrestleMania, and I was like, do you want to watch it together? It's the biggest wrestling event ever, and he was very excited. He watched like the first hour with me and then buggered off upstairs. But so this morning I had to cram in WrestleMania night 1 because if you don't, you just go on social media and get spoiled. So I didn't want to get spoiled. So I had to put the podcast off for the morning. This is not the Sunday morning Gaming Aroma podcast. This is the Sunday afternoon. At least that's when I'm recording. And my coffee that I have, it is decaf. I've had enough caffeine for today. Need to be careful on the old ticker, on the old heart. So I try not to have caffeine really after like lunchtime, so but I'm here to talk gaming, not wrestling. It's been it's not been a huge week of news. There's been some stuff that and this is a funny one. Like this probably isn't going to be a massively long episode because even gameplay wise, I'm not playing anything new. Well, that's not a lie. That's a lie. Sorry, my phone is just going off. I'm not playing anything brand new games wise, but I am playing some stuff that I've never played before, which I'll get to. But in terms of gaming news, yeah, there's not been a lot going on. There was definitely a couple of things that caught my eye, and I thought I'd maybe just have a little kind of ramble about some stuff that I was thinking about. Because there was a few things, they all sort of converged around the same topic. And I'm not going to get deep into the newsness of it. It's more just a talking point. So some stuff that was floating around this week was the idea that young people are playing and embracing retro games more than ever, which was really good to see. So basically the Guardian put an article out and they'd done some surveying, right, and looking at some data and speaking to people. And they were saying that they were embracing old games and retro games is booming. We know it kind of boomed during the pandemic as well, which is really cool to see. Because young people generally don't like, I was going to say modern video, that, you know, they don't consume their games in the same way that we did. A lot of them are mobile gamers, at least a large proportion of people are. But it's really cool to see that they are. I have this idea in my head that young people, which is such a broad brush to paint, you know, Gen Z, as it were, and Gen Alpha, who are slightly younger. Like when I think about music, right, I think about when I was growing up, I 1000% valued, respected, listened to music from before my generation. So I grew up, I was born in the late 80s, but so I grew up kind of getting introduced to music in the 90s. And the main person who really introduced me to music was my older brother, who's 6 years older than me. And he introduced me to Michael Jackson, Prince, Guns N' Roses, a lot of hip hop and metal, like hair metal. Yeah, a real mix of stuff. And then my mum was always playing music, you know, as mums do. And she has a very varied music taste, so I absorbed a lot through her. My dad basically exclusively listens to swing music, and that is it. So I kind of appreciate swing to a degree, but he didn't really influence me in other ways. But what I'm saying is when I was younger, I grew up and I knew about music that was before my time, and it was kind of shown to me. And then as I got older and I got really into music, you know, and I liked stuff that came out and I was really into to kind of punk and rock and metal and hip hop, the new metal generation that I was a part of as well. Loved all that, but still had a love for stuff from the 80s, 70s, you know, classic sort of Metallica, Black Sabbath and stuff like that, which a friend of mine, Ryan, I know you're probably listening to this. He's obsessed with, you know, Sabbath and Ozzy Osbourne and stuff. And I think I just absorbed stuff through him as well and other friends at school. So I always had respect for stuff that came before. And it feels like today, kids don't give a shit about old music, right? And is that just me that thinks that? Like, I try my best to see what's new where I can. I only have so much brain capacity to do that, but I see so much shit talking online from young people about, like, old hip hop and old rock music, right? There just seems to be no understanding or respect, and I really struggle to find new artists that I like as well. And I don't know, there's just this weird thing about music where it feels like they are really not appreciating what has came before. And I think largely that is because they kind of can't, because music is there's so much of it, and it's been devalued in such a big way. You know, with Spotify and stuff, the shuffle generation, the skip generation, everything at your fingertips, where you don't really have time to savor any music. So it's all very disposable. You don't really go looking anymore. And people, of course people do. Some people do. And I don't mean everyone. I just think broadly, Yeah, there is so much music out there. Why would they spend their time looking at old music when there's so much new stuff coming out all the time? So yeah, it's why I get really excited when I see like a new rapper come out with like a style that is very clearly inspired by the hip hop music that I loved growing up, and it feels like these people respect and acknowledge their influences, whereas some fans of music these days don't really seem to get that. Anyway, I'm rambling. We're supposed to be talking about gaming. My point was, it feels like as far as music goes, there's no real wide acknowledgement or respect or understanding of the influences, and there's a lot of shit talking about classic sort of hip hop and metal and stuff that I see online. Everyone kind of thinks it's trash. But with gaming, it's good to see that there does seem to be people exploring the retro game route. And I think probably, streamers and content creators are a large part of that. As much as some of them get on my nerves. I think about just my kid. I'm going to specifically indoctrinate my kid to play retro games, and he does. He loves Super Mario 64. He loves playing old games because I'm putting them in front of him. I feel like I'm doing a good job there, and he chooses to play them. We were in CEX the other day, and he spotted a Sonic the Hedgehog 2 on the Sega Mega Drive and kind of was looking at it through the glass and pointing at it and showing it to me and saying, look at this, look at this. And I do already have it, but it was a cool moment because I was like, right, this is cool. It's sinking in. He's like breezing past all the new stuff and running over to the retro stuff. So I'm forcing that upon him, whether he wants it or not. That's the way. I'm showing him the way. And then I think more broadly, streamers, obviously streamers and content creators play a lot of new stuff, but there is a big thing where I think they understand that the retro market is huge. So a lot of content creators are playing retro games and retro collecting, and the whole YouTube thing, it's drawing in younger people, and they're maybe discovering games in a way that they don't with music. You do get music content creators, right? I see them, but I not like gaming. It's just not as widely spread. So I thought it was really cool to see that the younger generation is embracing retro games. Ironically, when a lot of Gen Z, as from what we understand, aren't buying games consoles, the gaming console market is basically dying, or it's not growing. I talked about that on a previous episode. And so it's sort of at odds with that, but it's just cool to see that people are embracing it. And you do see it around. You see it on YouTube, and you see people talking about retro games in a way that they don't talk about music. So, that was really cool to see. And then that sort of tied into some other stuff that was floating around this week. So two things. One was that there was a report from... who shared it? This is me being really unprepared. Today's a bit weird because of WrestleMania and stuff like that. So it was a report by Newzoo, right? They released a game industry report including a ton of data and information on what people were playing and spending money on during 2023. According to Newzoo's data, the PC and console game market grew and reached 93.5 billion in revenue. Now, obviously, I just talked about consoles not growing. Revenue grows because of other things, which I think this article is going to get to. Basically software and services. Revenue in 2023. That might seem like good news, but drilling down into the data, it becomes clear that it's only good news for a small number of publishers and developers. Newzoo's data shows that the top 10 games on each platform, ranked by their average number of monthly active users, are filled with old, established titles. Fortnite took the crown on all platforms, including Switch and PC. The rest of the list included titles that won't surprise you, and these are games that I've talked about before. Grand Theft Auto 5, Counter-Strike 2, Roblox, Minecraft, Rocket League, Apex Legends, Fall Guys, Valorant? I don't even know what that is. And Call of Duty. Across Xbox and PlayStation consoles, only one dedicated single-player game cracked the top 10. Any guesses? Any guesses, anyone? One new single-player game cracked that top 10 of most played games in 2023. I'll give you a hint. It starts with S and ends with Tarfield. So yeah, to further prove that gamers are primarily focused on older games, Newzoo's data showed that just 66 titles accounted for 80% of all playtime in 2023, and 60% of the playtime was spent in games that are 6 years old or older. In fact, in 2023, 5 old games, Fortnite, Roblox, League of Legends, Minecraft, and GTA 5, accounted for 27% of all playtime in the year. It gets worse. Of the 23% playtime spent in 2023 on new games, defined as 2 years or younger, more than half was spent in big annual sequels like Madden or the NBA game. Only 8% of video game playtime was spent on new non-annual titles like Diablo 4 or Baldur's Gate 3. While Newzoo's report does point out that you can still be successful in this environment, the reality is that gamers are spending less and less time in new games and more and more time in already established franchises and live service titles, making it harder for publishers and developers to find an audience. So yeah, this obviously those games aren't really retro games, which I started talking about a minute ago. But again, this just ties into points I've brought up a few times on this show now about the shift in the industry and the risks with new games and yeah, what do people want? And it's all well and good us kind of, I guess, hardcore gamers, or I don't know. I feel like a lot of people listening to this maybe aren't Fortnite players. Maybe you are. But yeah, we would love new stuff. And I do love new stuff. Go out of my way to play new stuff and play indie games and try new things that come to Game Pass. I buy new things. Yeah, There aren't many games, kind of like black hole games, that I'm still playing. I jump to Fallout 76 now and again. That's kind of it. But I'm not everyone, and it's hard to. You just have to remind yourself sometimes that we are like a small percentage of the people that actually play games. So when you see these big moves by, Microsoft and Sony going to digital and the live service push by PlayStation and Warner Brothers and everybody, it's because that's what people are playing, whether we like it or not. That and retro games, apparently. So yeah, it's really hard to kind of break through and crack through. And the games do. Another thing I mentioned, there's always games that break through. Vampire Survivors, Among Us, Lethal Company, Helldivers 2, I'm forgetting some, but there's smaller games that always break through, Solo Dead, Balatro. I'm always banging on about that. There will be these games that always break through. But yeah, it's just, it just explains a lot, right, about why maybe, there's a lot of fuss about the generation and when does the generation arrive and are we getting the most out of these consoles, and maybe do the manufacturers even feel bothered or obliged or inclined to increase the power of these consoles when no fucker out there is gonna buy them? At least, us older gamers will. No new people are gonna buy them. And then anyone that's already got a console is playing games that can be run on consoles that are effectively 2 generations old, or on your phone. So yeah, it feels like, I don't know, it feels like things are moving at lightning speed at the moment in the games industry in terms of how the games are put out and how we play them. And I love console, and I don't really want the box to go away. Whatever box that is, whoever it's by, the convenience, the cost of a console to me is just infinitely more interesting than the setup of a PC and the cost and investment of a PC. I have said I'm a fidelity snob. I want the games to perform well, and I will always, if I can, I have a Series X. I didn't buy the Series S. I do have a 4K TV. Lots of people out there don't, so they're fine with the Series S, and they don't need 60 frames per second, and they don't need native 4K. I think most people don't, right? Which is why a lot of these games that come out aren't hitting all these markers. Even, because that's the other thing that was in the news. Hellblade, Hellblade 2, the previews came out, and once again, the 60 frames and 30 frames per second conversation was in the news. If you didn't listen to the episode last week, I kind of planted my flag, and I was like, look, Does it matter 60 frames per second? Sometimes. I'm not going to repeat myself. Please go back and listen. I did a big spiel about 30 FPS versus 60 FPS, but it's back in the headlines again. And what I will kind of addendum to it is, and I'm getting maybe away from my point here, but what is stunning to me, stunning's maybe the wrong word, what is interesting to me, what is odd to me is, no, I mean, I suppose I said this on the last episode, people who I respect a lot in kind of games journalism and I guess people who are covering games online, and not the crazy internet, warriors, keyboard warriors and all that. People who I really respect are flat out kind of making huge digs at Xbox and Hellblade and Sony and Capcom and who did Final Fantasy? Square Enix. Because we've had a few games come out, right? Final Fantasy VII Rebirth with a terrible performance mode. Dragon's Dogma 2 with terrible performance all round no matter where you play it. Which has received some criticism. Final Fantasy VII didn't really, which is interesting. And then Hellblade, the Xbox game, Hellblade 2 comes out and it's the end of the fucking world. And, people say the Xbox tax doesn't exist, but there's people showing very clear examples of journalists and outlets being biased yet again. When it comes to Hellblade, not kicking up a fuss about Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and its terrible performance mode, but acting like Hellblade 2 is not delivering on the promise of the consoles. And I don't really care what Xbox and PlayStation said when the generations launched, native 4K 60. It's like, yeah, the consoles can do that. That's not a lie. Whether the developer does it, is up to them. It's not a mandate. It's not the law. You will find developers and games that you want to support and you like their stuff. And there's no point getting mad at Xbox and PlayStation for saying native 4K 60. The machines can do that. Whether the developers do it is, for a number of reasons. Is it talent? I don't think it's all talent and skill. It's a mix of technology, fighting against vision, fighting against creativity, fighting against talent, fighting against budget, fighting against deadlines. It's a whole mix of stuff. And yes, there's a lot of flack again against Hellblade 2 for being 30 FPS on consoles. I don't give a shit. I'm perfectly happy. It's a cinematic, story-driven, kind of, basically on-rails game. 30 FPS is fine. It looks like a movie. You're playing a movie. I know going in that that's the experience I'm going to have. If I want to go and have more of a video game, experience where it's more, I was going to say subjective, but that's the wrong term. It's not like it's first person. I'm not really assuming the role of the character. With something like Hellblade, I'm more along for the ride as a spectator, and that's fine. That's fine. But then when I go play something like an RPG, it's like, yeah, it makes maybe more sense to feel a bit more like you're looking through a window, and 60 frames can help it. Or a fighting game, 60 frames can help it. A racing game, 60 frames, yeah. Cinematic nature of games, like even Starfield, which is an RPG, like the 30 frames in that, I said on another episode, it's strangely smooth. At times where it looks like it's more than 30 frames. And this links back to my whole point, which I sort of put out on Twitter this week, which after me seeing people that I kind of really respect in game coverage just giving shit to Hellblade 2 and the whole 30 frames per second and stuff, and I just think, really? Is it really that important to you? Go and get a PC if it's that important to you. But the point I made was, for me, does it matter? Yes, sometimes, but more, above all, stability matters to me. If I'm playing a 30 frames per second game that isn't stable, it's going to be a problem. If I'm playing a 60 frames per second game that isn't stable, it's going to be a problem. Stability, fidelity, to me, are way more important. Not that 60 frames can't be great, sometimes. So yeah, it's up in the news again, but it's just, yeah, I've kind of got a long way from what I was saying, but I'm excited for Hellblade 2. I think it looks great. It's that that cinematic story, movie-like game experience that I'm happy to immerse myself in. And then I can go play my first-person shooter or third-person shooter with a high frame rates. Gears 5 does, 120 frames per second on Xbox Series X, and it looks great. And yeah, I don't really... because it can do it, it looks great. And I don't really want to play that in 30 frames per second. How did I get to this point? People are playing old games. Yeah. The consoles, why would they care? I don't know. People are playing retro games. People are playing old games. The games, just the broader point of the games industry is shifting. It's all happening so quickly, and it's hard to kind of keep up with sometimes, but weird hate towards Hellblade, weird hate towards Xbox. And then, kind of quiet criticism towards Sony when they do exactly the same thing. But that's just the way it goes. And then what was the other thing that I was thinking to? What did it connect to? Yes, I remember. So with all this, then there was the other thing, and this is still kind of some Xboxy news. News report came out that Sarah Bond, who is in charge of hardware at Xbox, right? Basically, backwards compatibility and forward preservation and everything, they're saying loud and clear, look, it's a consideration. So yeah, it's funny that was all in the news, and it's good to see that, yes, possibly maybe some more backwards compatibility for 360 games, older Xbox games or whatever are coming to Xbox. The platforms are opening themselves up. They know people just want more games on all screens. Forward preservation is, it's all well and good them saying it. They need to do it. I've lost digital games myself. They need to kind of put their money where their mouth is. But I do believe that they think, there is a market there, because as we've seen, people are playing retro games. People like old games. They need to make sure Fortnite can be played on whatever hardware comes next, right? Because that's all people care about, apparently. But that's really cool to see. And that was just just a bit of a headline. There's not a huge amount of information, but they're specifically putting a team together to work on this stuff, right? I just want more Xbox 360 games to be playable on my Series X, to be honest. I have loads of 360 games. I don't actually own a 360 at the moment. I would like to get one back. But yeah, just a lot of retro gaming industry news again. It's all so interlinked in a way, and I had a bit of, my episode last week got a bit ranty, where it's just people very big to criticize the big corporations and stuff. I believe I'm fine with them wanting to make some money out of my hobby. I'm fine with it. Just make stuff that I want to buy and make services that I want to buy and do it humanely as humanely as possible. That's kind of all I ask. I understand the pros and cons of business and growth business. Yeah, I'm not getting back into that rant again. I did that last week. And I know I sound like an absolute mental case just talking to myself about this, but yeah, just getting it off my chest. Yeah, I'm not going to kind of dive too much deeper into it really, because there's loads you could say about the subject. And I do want to talk to somebody about it. I'm going to have some people on and talk about direction of the gaming industry and stuff like that. But yeah, it feels like every week there is another headline about this stuff. And that's the thing where it's like, if you're not paying attention to that, and it's fine if people don't care. Like, it's fine if people are like, I'm just going to play my games. I'm just going to, whatever comes out, if it interests me, I'll buy it. I don't care about the direction of the industry and stuff like that. That's fine. I do care. I do take a big interest because I like to kind of know where my money's going, I suppose, or what's worth the investment. I still think Game Pass and Xbox is worth the investment. I feel like my honest opinion is at the moment it looks like the most likely to survive in gaming would be Xbox because of Game Pass. Because if we keep hurtling towards this direction where people don't buy consoles and people don't buy, really expensive new games, and all they're doing is playing live service games and paying for microtransactions and seasonal updates. Xbox have bought the publishers. They're getting themselves on every single screen possible. They're the ones that will be the most stable, right? Sony need to change their model. Nintendo need to change their model. They'll ride it out for a while, but this can't go on, right? And I guess this is why Xbox are taking a lot of shit, because it's not the gaming industry that we kind of know and love, and it is changing. I don't know. It does require some kind of deep thought and analysis, but it feels like as an Xbox player, and this is another thing I said before, it kind of feels like I'm not put first, because as an Xbox console player, I'm not really put first. What's put first is everybody, which is fine. Can I moan about that? When I say everybody, I mean Xbox wanting, their games on your phone, on your PC, on your console, on your TV, Samsung with a built-in Game Pass app. Apparently there's a projector you can buy now which has a built-in Game Pass app, right? Which, it's just for cloud streaming, but they want it everywhere. And it's like, yes, it's moving away from what traditionally and classically a game platform is, but that's what music has done. That's what movies have done. I mean, it pains me to talk about movies sometimes, because cinema and going to the cinema is like church, right? And there is a real chance that when my son is older, not only are there not games consoles anymore, going to the movies is like a niche experience. Cinemas will close down. There'll be smaller screens, which might be kind of nice. I don't know, but I like the big screens, big sound system, big room full of people watching the movie together, as long as they're not talking or eating. Why do they sell, like, some of the food they sell I'm not getting started on that. Like, yes, popcorn. Let's sell the loudest food possible in the cinema. Anyway, I love popcorn, but I generally eat it before the film has started. That's what I do. And people that buy hot dogs and nachos in the cinema and it just stinks out the room, that I don't like. I get why the cinemas do it. They have to make their money. Anyway, getting off on a tangent again. There's a very real chance that cinemas aren't around when my kid is older, that games consoles aren't around. Everything is changing. I do think about it a lot. And maybe you should too. For about a year ago, I remember doing a tweet about the year ago that, like, if I was a Sony player, a PlayStation player, and I was dealing with what they were giving me, I'd be asking some serious questions about what they're doing. One first-party exclusive last year, and it was based off a Marvel license. That's shit. That's so shit. Doesn't mean there's no games on PlayStation. But yeah, I don't know what Sony are doing. They can't keep it up. They're probably scrambling around. We know they've got leadership changes. Everything's changing. Jim Ryan's gone. Connie Booth's gone. PlayStation are changing. Things are going to be unrecognizable possibly in the next 10 years. And it's happening now. Like I say, every week there's a new headline which touches on this stuff, about movements being made, strategies being kind of changed. Sony and Nintendo can definitely ride it out. I think Nintendo have maybe a better chance than Sony to kind of live longer with the current model. And everyone's obviously very excited to see what the Switch 2 does, and that's, maybe that'll bring the conversation back round and they just prove, no, see, people are interested in consoles as long as they've got some kind of weird gimmick. Not that I think they'll be changing it much from the hybrid. But yeah, it does interest me. Every week there's something new to think about. I feel like I've got more value from Game Pass in the last year and a half than I have ever. So that's still really, like I say, when I talk about what one of them's most likely to survive, it feels like Microsoft and Xbox. It doesn't matter that they're not selling as many consoles. I keep saying this. It doesn't matter if you sell 100 million PS5s at a loss when no one's buying your games and no one's paying your services. That's where the money is, because you can't keep making the games for $300 million and making a tiny little profit margin on it. They won't do it. I mean, it's, I wish it was that way, but it's not. Netflix is funny because they obviously don't sell their stuff on Blu-ray and DVD. They do sometimes, right? They do bring stuff out occasionally. But like Game Pass is different because at all times, like nothing is exclusive to Game Pass. You can buy the games at any time. Even when you're a Game Pass subscriber, you get discounts when you buy the game as well. So it's a curated service. It's not an exclusive service, which is what Netflix, Amazon, Discovery, Paramount, HBO, they're exclusive services. There's stuff on those services that you can only get by being a subscriber. And that's a sketchy model. They're all bumping up their prices. They're all struggling to keep up with it. But gaming, it's different. And Game Pass is different because nothing is actually exclusive to Game Pass. And you can still buy the games. And I'm buying more games than ever. I'm a subscriber to Game Pass, which makes me play more games. And I don't know, it makes me love games more, and it makes me spend my money on other games that aren't on Game Pass. And I've bought games that have left Game Pass. So I don't think it's doing the damage to the industry that people think it is. There is a conversation about, development and, what can people risk developing a game if people aren't going to buy it, at retail, if they're just relying on a Game Pass, license agreement or whatever it is, not stream agreement, just an agreement to go on Game Pass. As a developer making a game, you think, right, we're going to put all the budget into this. We need to make our money back. Are we going to do that on Game Pass, or do we sell it? And Game Pass, the argument is that it encourages people not to buy games because you just get it on Game Pass. I do see that argument. You can still buy the game, and it is curated. Games aren't on Game Pass forever. The Xbox first-party exclusives are, but that doesn't matter. That's not the games I'm talking about. We're talking about the smaller games, third-party publishers. Microsoft have got the money to fund their games for the most part. But the smaller games, they can be on Game Pass and maybe get exposed to an audience that would never have seen them before. And then when they leave Game Pass, their friends tell them about that game, and then you have to buy it. It's a different model, and it's a different way of doing things. And that initial Game Pass bump of money and exposure could help you in the long term. So, some developers come out and praise it. Some, I think, are less praising of it. It's another huge 3-hour-long conversation in there somewhere. But as I said, for me, it's a model that really works. I want to see more retro games on it. I mean, to me, it feels like money left on the table. So it's good that apparently Xbox are doing this thing about backwards compatibility, preservation, forward and backwards preservation. Because if they can bring more retro games to the store, they don't even have to be on Game Pass. I will buy them. Just give me the option to buy them. There's a dog barking outside. Sorry if you can hear that. So there's just, like I say, there's news every week. What do you think about it? Let me know. What's next? So, what have I been playing? Not a lot, to be honest with you. As I said at the start, I've kind of been feeling like crap this week. My son has passed his illness on to me, which is, it's been a struggle to get through this, as you probably tell by my voice, like I said. But so it's the first week of the Easter holidays. We've got another week to go. There's been a lot of juggling the kids, less gaming time. In the evenings, I've been tired, but then also been ill as well. I haven't really felt like playing games, so I've just been playing Balatro. I've been playing some of the Fallout 76 update. I'm playing Gears Tactics for the Gears Intel podcast, which having a great fucking time with that. I mean, yeah, that's the thing I was recording Let's Plays for. Gears Tactics, going to have lots to say about that on the Gears Intel podcast later in the month. But gaming wise, yeah, it's just little dribs and drabs here and there. I really don't have kind of a great contribution to gameplay section this week. Sorry. Oh, one thing I have been doing is playing games on my phone. As listeners to this show will know, I did finally upgrade my shitty phone, and I have a Samsung S24 Galaxy Ultra now, which means it's really good at playing games. So I've kind of re-immersed myself back into the mobile gaming world, and this is, again, it sparks other thoughts and conversations in my head that I want to have with people. The whole mobile gaming thing. I used to play a lot more games on my phone and the iPad that I used to have back in the day. Simpsons Tapped Out, that game I played a lot of. Simpsons Tapped Out, Fallout Shelter. But on my new phone, obviously I can play. I can do remote play for my Xbox on my phone, and you can do cloud streaming as well. But I was installing, what did I install? Super Mario Run, which is awesome. I didn't even know that existed. I reinstalled Elder Scrolls Blades, which is an incredibly, high production value mobile game with obscene microtransactions in. But when that game launched, it wasn't long after my son was born, and the real cool selling point about that game was it had cross save on your phone and the Switch versions. So I would jump between the Switch and my phone playing Elder Scrolls Blades, and I sunk a lot of time into that game. And I've reinstalled it on my S24, and I'm like, man, I'm going to be playing some more of this, because it's nice to have a phone that once again can run games really well. And, it's a viable way to play games. It's not necessarily a viable way to natively play the brand new AAA games. Looking at you, Resident Evil 4 Remake. But mobile games, and specific mobile games, there's a huge market there. Look how big Marvel Snap is. I love Marvel Snap as well. But I've been playing a lot of mobile games so much that I'm like, I need one of the, the Razer. Is it Razer? The snap-on things that you snap to your phone, so you actually got the controls and the buttons. So it's like, it slots into that rather than using the touch screen controls. And I can Bluetooth my Xbox controller to my phone, which is also really good to do. But again, the phone is then separate from you, and I'd rather just hold it in my hand. So I'm definitely going to pick up one of those Game Razer controllers. I think they're like 80 quid, which, ouch, is a big bit of money drop. But yeah, I just feel like I feel like it's a worthy investment now, because I could be playing a lot more mobile games, and I want to, just kind of immerse myself into that world, maybe get an emulator on there as well. So yeah, that's sort of something I fell into this week. And I, even just this morning, like when I got up with my son, as I said, we were watching WrestleMania this morning, but while we were still waiting for my wife to get up and get ready, I was just playing some Elder Scrolls Blades on my phone. And yeah, really impressive. And I kind of forgot how good that mobile games can be when you've got a phone that can run them. So yeah, another conversation to have there. Mobile gaming, what does it mean? What is it good for? Etc. What else? So yeah, I said last week how this might now be the time that I dive into something like Cyberpunk 2077, which I've still not played. Or do I go to Dragon's Dogma? Or do I go to Baldur's Gate 3? Because there isn't really anything releasing until June, right? Or did I forget something? There might be like one game releasing late May or whatever. So there's not a lot of new games coming out that interest me. So I was like, now's the time to go to something in the backlog. And I think I still will do that. I just need to get through Gears Tactics first, which is such an awesome game. And I'm really looking forward to doing our retrospective. We're going to do 2 podcast episodes on that. So come and follow Gears Intel. If you don't already, please subscribe to that YouTube channel and find the podcast on podcast feeds. And yeah, come and watch some of the Let's Plays. You can watch me playing Gears Tactics if you like, which also I felt like a fucking idiot doing. I did a tweet about it on the Gears Intel account. Like, I remember like streaming, because I used to stream quite a bit. That was different because as long as you had like a couple of people in chat to talk to, it was fine. But when I do a Let's Play, it's offline and there's no one to talk to, and I just feel like a complete moron. I'm just talking nonsense to myself, narrating what I'm doing, and I don't know. I'm not really... And because it's a Let's Play, there's no real point to it. I'm not like doing a walkthrough or a tips guide or anything, so it is kind of pointless. And I'm just talking rubbish, and I hear myself talking rubbish and not really saying anything of value. I'm sure I'm really selling this to you to go and watch the Let's Play. But I'm playing it like to refamiliarize myself with the game and the story more than anything. I thought, I'll just do some content for the channel as well. But yeah, doing a Let's Play, talking to yourself, I am not good at that. I don't mind doing the podcasts, talking, because I feel like, again, there's kind of a point to it, and I'm, giving some direct thoughts and opinions on the news and on the games I'm playing. And then while you're doing a Let's Play, you can't really do that because you're playing the game. And that's the other thing. I feel like I'm missing out on aspects of the game. I'm sort of missing some of the story, and I'm fucking up some of the moves on tactics because I'm busy talking nonsense at the same time. So yeah, I'm probably not going to do Let's Plays for the whole game because I'm not really enjoying it, but I've done some already, and they're going to start going out on the YouTube channel this week. So yeah. Gears Tactics, some Fallout 76, and I'm sure there was something else. Balatro as well. I still haven't finished a game on Balatro because obviously I suck at it. And some mobile gaming. Mobile gaming is the future. Should we just let the consoles die? All switch to our phones. Seems like that's what the kids want anyway, so... Yeah, who's going to be buying the consoles in future? Nobody, apparently. They're buying PC and they're buying mobile phones. That's why there's this big push. Right, I think I'm going to leave it there. Again, sorry, not a massively in-depth episode this week. Feeling super bunged up and a bit like crap. And WrestleMania has taken up a lot of my time today. And yeah, but I will be back next week, maybe to talk about more mobile gaming. Who knows? Who knows? There will guaranteed to be a big news headline of some description. But yeah, just kind of waiting for the day that, we're going to get one of those big announcements soon, I think, from Xbox, where they're going to announce their hardware and stuff. That was other things. There's rumors about Gears 6 and stuff, which I haven't touched on today. But the Xbox showcase will be coming up in the summer, in June, which is closer than we realise. And Sony are obviously working on stuff in the background. We still haven't got the Switch 2 reveal. There's lots of stuff happening. It's going to be a busy, busy time in gaming. And I promise I'm going to get guests on soon. And like I say, do more structured sort of topic-based episodes. I really want to talk about, like I said, some retro games, mobile games, the PSP I want to talk to people about, the industry, growth, and just all that kind of nonsense. So yeah, if you've got this far, thank you for sticking with me. Please do rate the podcast on Spotify. I had an email through actually from Apple Podcast Connect that said that I was in the top 25 most listened to gaming podcasts for the month of March. Now, I think those numbers are really skewed, and I just think it's something to do with the fact that I put out an episode every week and not everyone does that. It doesn't mean I have thousands of listens, because trust me, I don't. I got a solid audience out there, which, some of my last couple of episodes were the most listened to, I think. My numbers went up. Let's keep bumping those numbers. But yeah, thank you to anyone that's listened to me ramble. Gonna be more stuff coming soon. Thank you for indulging me. Enjoy your Sunday wherever you are, whatever you're doing. Till next time, bye. Bye.